If you could go back in time and look at the Otford of 100 years ago, you might recognise a few landmarks. You would know you were in Otford because the pond would be there, possibly a little unkempt and overgrown, the picturesque feature at the heart of the village. The parish church, the green, and the cottages beyond. The ruin of the palace would be instantly recognisable. Looking down the high street, you would observe the overflow stream running down the northern side of the road, crossed by little stone causeways giving access to the dwellings. Forge cottages, rented out and looking dilapidated next to the forge, where the hammering from the farrier at work and the horse waiting patiently would enhance the rural scene. Reaching Mill Bridge and looking back, you would see Pickmoss, part of which was a medieval hall house, and behind you, Bridge Cottage hasn't changed much at all over the years. Between Otford's two bridges lies the 17th century Broughton Manor, in use as a farmhouse. The sun is rising on a morning in early September in the year 1907. To the south of the village, mists glisten as they drift in the bright rays over the water meadow that slopes down to the Darrant River that gives this valley its name. The tall figure of a man can be observed, surveying the scene, which he has viewed many times, yet taking in the grandeur and beauty as if seeing it for the first time. It is Richard Hoff, the schoolmaster. He has been headmaster of Otford National School since 1878, when he was only 23. He lives in the schoolhouse, adjoining the school in the High Street, and his wife Elizabeth and daughter Beatrice help with the teaching of the 140 or so pupils. Being September, it is the school vacation, the hopping holiday. Managers of the school have decreed that holidays should be regulated by local circumstances.
Easter, 1 week. Whitsun, 1 week. Hop picking, 6 weeks.
Mr. Hoff was aware that over 100,000 foreigners are flocked into Kent for the hop picking. Most of the hoppers came from the poor areas of southeast London, joined by gypsies and travellers. In addition, local people were employed, some leaving their regular trade to supplement their low wages, taking with them their wives and children. Many of the families from London regard hopping as a holiday, much of their hard-earned money disappearing into the tills of local pubs long before they returned home. The end of hopping would be a time for celebrations. The aroma of the fruit of the vine hung in the surrounding air, pervading the whole countryside. The hop season seemed permanently woven into the culture and fabric of Kent, never changing from year to year. In less than 50 years, the hop gardens would have all but disappeared from the landscape, not just in Kent, but from the English countryside, and that most of the oaths would be converted to fashionable and expensive dwellings. Time, that ever-flowing river, changes the lives of ordinary people imperceptibly. Over a lifetime, each gradual difference alters lives beyond recognition. Never in the history of the world have the advances in universal knowledge and their application to human society been so great as the century dividing the 19th and 21st. To the villagers of Otford, this may have brought marginal improvement to their quality of life, but their expectations would not have greatly changed from those of their parents and grandparents. Although close to London, linked by the railway to almost every part of England, the area remained largely agricultural, surrounded by hop gardens, verdant meadows and orchards. Rose lives with her brother Tom and their parents near the centre of the village. Their lives were at the threshold of change. The motor car was well known to them, though neither had ever travelled in one. Neither they or their parents had ever used a telephone, although there was one available at Warren's, the post office, in the High Street. They'd only seen pictures of flying machines and never dreamed that one day such things would be common in the skies above. The house they lived in had no electricity or internal piped water. Though times and customs change, many old things remain as part of our lives. The village school is in constant use to this day. Built in 1872, it was considered modern in 1907, even though the closets were not connected to the sewer. This lack of decent sanitation would have been a contributory factor in many illnesses and school closures that affected the pupils. Scarlet fever and diphtheria were common complaints.
October 9th, 1908. The school reassembled on the 5th. One child, G. Bingham, having died from diphtheria the week previous. On Tuesday, another child, Parker, died of the same complaint, had not attended school the day before. Both children from Shinecroft and 3 others from the same locality removed to hospital. October 16th, closed for diphtheria. March 26, 1909. The school reassembles after diphtheria epidemic. The school, meanwhile, has been painted inside and out. Closets attached to the sewer.
Rose looked forward to the long summer evenings, when she would join her friends on a green open space for singing games that had been handed down from mothers and grandmothers before them. Tom and his friends spent their leisure time with marbles, spinning tops, conkers, and knockabout games of football. Soon, he and his friend Billy Emery would join the newly formed Boy Scout movement and take pride in their membership and find new companionship and fresh hobbies. On reaching school leaving age, Rose's school friends had little choice. Although more career opportunities were beginning to blossom, many girls still stayed at home, hoping one day to marry. Others went into service, some leaving school early to do so. For Tom and his classmates, many found agricultural jobs, and some went to work in the expanding industry of mechanization. For all of them, Tom, Billy Emery, and the rest of their friends, dark clouds were forming on the horizon of their lives, which would affect them all. Harvest. The very word conjures up images of hazy, sunlit fields, of loaded wagons standing with great Shire horses silhouetted against a brilliant sky. Wheat, corn, or barley rippling in endless waves across oceans of ripened gold, the whole scene heavy with the scent and breath of bountiful nature, dimming thoughts of harsh winter months ahead. Workers unaware of grim places on this planet where there is no harvest. The corn would be cut, sometimes by teams of hired men expert with scythe and sickle, sometimes by the local farm workers, eventually by machines more efficient. As the autumn days drew in, Tom and Rose would join their mother and other families to glean the field where the wheat had stood, and there now remained stubble. Produce from allotments and back gardens would add to the riches of the food store, and vegetables to keep as long as possible through the cold winter. And so in September 1907, the oats kilns would be fired and the hops dried. The crops would be gathered in and the bounty of the harvest thankfully celebrated in the parish church. 100 years have gone by, and time, the ever-rolling stream, has indeed borne many sons away. People who trod the lanes and roads, worked in the fields, and lived in the cottages of old Otford would find the way we live now astounding and wonderful. What of the character of the people? What changes there? Who can judge whether the spirit of the community is better or worse? Prosperity inevitably alters our daily lives, and villages, especially those close to towns and cities, are no longer the close-knit settlements they once were. Today we do not live close to nature as they did. The seasons do not have the same impact as in that bygone age. But their constancy remains. They still follow on, one after the other, year after year, century after century, changing only as weather patterns alter. One thing is certain, all human life depends on the land and the fruitfulness of the harvest. Raise the sun.